to the I Love Buffalo podcast. Part of the I Love Buffalo network with your host, Josh Catry.
Welcome, good neighbors, to the I Love Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Josh Catry. If you're new, a little bit about the podcast. We'll cover everything Buffalo and beyond. No topic off limits. So that's news, business, ideas, philosophy, history, sports, martial arts, nature, the outdoors, fishing, entrepreneurship, and all things that we can think of that champion our area, our community, and the underdog city that we love, and the good people in it. Today on the podcast, Digital ID New York was launched. Janie gets gold at the Waco K1 kickboxing. Jason Arno is remembered for his service as a firefighter that lost his life on the job 2 years ago. So, you want to be an entrepreneur part 4, and our top 10 list of changes we would like to see in Buffalo. All this and more on this episode of the I Love Buffalo podcast.
Let him fully awake.
That was local producer and DJ Kimono Fox with a song called Fully Awake. So give them a check out. That's Kimono Fox, Fully Awake. In our first segment here, we're going to honor Jason Arno. As you all remember, Jason Arno gave his life 2 years ago, fighting a fire on Main Street, trying to serve this community. Being courageous and entering a burning building, that requires empathy to understand how scary and how intense that is, and the service that people like that are called to make sure that everyone inside is safe and the structure is safe and no one else gets hurt. The fact that he lost his life in that service is something that we should not forget. We should honor and be grateful. Personally, we are grateful on this podcast for people like this in our community. Jason died on Main Street in 2023 while serving with Engine 2, and he left behind a wife and young daughter, and is greatly missed by many people in the community. Families, communities, in towns, in countries, they need people to be brave and be heroes and stand up for what's right, and sometimes stand in the line of danger between others. And that's what Jason did. We respect that. And take a moment to remember Jason Arno. In a little bit lighter news, but also someone who is honoring courage, Janie from Buffalo United Martial Arts gets the gold medal at Waco K1 kickboxing in Columbus, Ohio this week. Every year in Columbus, there is the annual Arnold Sports Festival. It's been called the Arnold Classic before. It's had a bunch of names, I think, but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger who basically started this. And it's lifting and fight sports and grappling and all this around it. Well, the Waco U.S. National Championships for 2025, the kickboxing championships, were held there this year. Janie went 3-1 in her fights and got 1 gold medal and 1 silver medal. Janie's the kind of athlete, I see her working outside of the normal schedules for her classes, comes in with her friends and training partners and works on the side, does extra, puts in the work, tests herself, and did great. Represented Buffalo amazing. Congratulations, Janie. That's great to see. Keep up the great work. And hopefully we'll have you on one of the local K4 fights soon enough where we can all come down and participate and watch you continue your success. For those of you that don't know, K4 is a local kickboxing, MMA, Muay Thai, and fight promotion. And it's a really awesome promotion. Their next big event is at Buffalo Riverworks on March 29th. That should be an awesome fight. It's called Full Force. So you can get tickets for that online, I believe. There will be some great local fights, and they always mix it up. Sometimes it's an MMA fight, sometimes it's kickboxing, sometimes it's Muay Thai. They always mix it up, and the night is super entertaining with all different kinds of stuff mixed in. So check out K4 Fighting. As everyone knows from last week, we were talking about the prison guard strike and how that's going. So a quick update, nothing's been fully resolved yet. Right now, the developments the past few days are this. Governor Kathy Hochul announced a tentative agreement to end the strike, and it included a 90-day suspension of the HALT Act, and so they could assess the safety and things like that around it, and reducing mandatory 24-hour shifts, temporary overtime pay enhancements, and the establishment of a committee to address staffing inefficiencies and things like this. The continued strike actions were going along, and despite the agreement, though, many corrections officers are rejecting the proposal, and they think that it's not going far enough to fix the measures that are needed to have a safe prison system. So, consequently, a significant number of officers are continuing to strike beyond the state's deadline to return to work. The state recently just increased a lot of pressure back onto the corrections officers, saying that if they've been absent without leave for more than 11 days, they're facing termination, and their health insurance benefits, including those of their dependents, are revoked retroactively to the first day of absence. And those officers are also ineligible for COBRA benefits from that point forward. So this is really the iron boot of government coming down saying, you go to work or you lose everything you work for. Don't even try to negotiate with us. This has got to put a lot of pressure on many of the prison guards on whether or not they should return to work, because a lot of them have families. So I can understand these kind of coercive demands forcing you back into work. This doesn't seem like collective bargaining at all, or collective anything. Collective means that everyone is part of the problem-solving process. So that's what collective means, and this is not collective. This is top-down authoritarianism. I personally know quite a few prison guards. I know this is a very difficult decision. I respect them all and all the tough decisions they have to make. The people that stand with their convictions so strongly for the right reasons, that's what courage is made for. So respect to all of you. This was kind of a slow week for news in Buffalo, New York, which is a good thing if it's bad news. This one piece of news we do want to comment on, though, it is the Digital ID New York was launched. New York State has introduced the Mobile ID MID, a voluntary digital version of state-issued identification, including driver's licenses, learner permits, and non-driver IDs. This launched in June of 2024. The program has seen a rapid adoption, and there's about 200,000 New Yorkers now enrolling as of February 2025. It offers conveniences, so like you have airport security accepted, age verification for bars and restaurants. It does have some features that they claim are for safety, but I do have some concerns with them. First of all is biometric authorization access. So in order to authorize your ID, you need biometrics like your face or touch ID, a secure 6-digit PIN. This kind of information belonging to a government or to someone else, I don't think is necessary. I think there are ways that we could decentralize this kind of process and not give this kind of power to the state. You have to look only to places like China to see how they use digital systems to control people. So once you have a digital ID, they can tie things to it like all of your banking and then social credit scores. So if the government doesn't like how you're behaving, they can control things. That's what they actually do. If you jaywalk in China and you're caught on camera, you'll receive negative social credit points and you'll be fined. And it's always constantly spying on you like something out of an Orwellian book. So that being said, I am very skeptical of these digital systems that are kind of being put in place all around us with government. I think the people should have control of the digital systems, not a centralized entity that is known for wild feats of corruption, including some really horrible rings of child predators even. So we shouldn't be trusting the government so much. And as I always say on this show, don't trust, verify. And this should be for all sides of the aisle. We should not have systems over our lives that we cannot verify are trustworthy. And if there's corruption afoot, we should look together. That's one thing we should unify against, is looking together. And these kinds of digital IDs, when you really understand what they could be used for, getting on and off the internet, how much gas or eggs or food did you spend on this month? And can we stifle your purchasing power using digital prisons? And it will all start with digital ID. So I just like to heed the warning that this could be misused and abused by centralized power when you see things like this. As you all know, I'm a big fan of technology. I love technology and how it can help humanity and free us from certain things. But we should also be aware of the dangers that come with any new power. All powerful things can be used for good or evil. So we're talking about electricity, flight, We're talking about guns. That's a form of technology that could have been used for good or evil. Nuclear power, the internet, AI, and digital IDs are one of these things that we shouldn't just turn a blind eye to. Be very cautious of what we accept and why we're accepting it. And also be cautious of what kind of systems we're allowed to use. Good systems should be transparent, that we should be allowed to see exactly what's going on, and the power should be decentralized to the people, not to centralized and easily corruptible entities like the government. So recently there was a fun exercise going around the internet asking if you could change one thing in Buffalo, if you had the power to change anything and do anything, what would you do? So we decided to list our top 10 things that we would do here at the I Love Buffalo podcast. Let us know if you think our ideas are good ideas or bad ideas, and if you have any ideas of your own that you think we should do. Here's the top 10 list of things that we would do if we could change anything. The first is we would rid the city of corrupt systems and people and replace them with systems that are difficult to corrupt and that included all of the people they affect. Everyone who has skin in the game is part of the solutions process. That's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is remove the 190 North and put it underground, starting probably at a tunnel right around the 198. So everything north of the 198, it would go underground. And this would make the riverfront accessible with green space. We could put on top of it, have a park, have docks for fishing, have gardens, and have a walkway for people to get closer to the water. Number 3, and you may disagree with number 3, but we would have put the stadium downtown. The downtown stadium would have been iconic near the waterfront there and kept all the energy in the heart of the city booming. Of course, it's nostalgic and awesome right where it is, but putting it downtown would have allowed for a lot more things to be built on top of it, like possibly an expo center and things like this. Number 4, replace the Skyway with a low parkway and drawbridges and connect the inner and outer harbor by continuing Michigan Street where General Mills is. They actually knocked down an old bridge there and it never went back up, and that used to connect the outer and inner harbor right there. Also, on top of this, I would dig a lot more canals coming in off of the water and bring those back into the First Ward and inner harbor areas so more people would have access to the waterways in all kinds of different spots and make that water more accessible and larger areas for waterfront property to meet. Number 5, turn the 33 into a tunnel and put a super long central park over the top of it with sports fields and green spaces, hiking trails, and water features. Number 6, make more of the outer harbor protected space for wildlife, especially the reclamation pond that's inside of Bethlehem Steel, and also Woodlawn Beach and near the windmills there. That would all be spaces for hiking and more areas for nature, especially these old reclamation ponds where they kind of dump the silt and stuff from the bottom of the Buffalo River. We could have access to these spots because they're great spots for migratory birds to land and wildlife and people to get pictures. And you could have safe access to them and still keep everything kind of under wraps in terms of environmental concerns. Number 7, I would restore some grassland habitat along Lake Erie, try to buy a bunch of land and establish breeding Henslow's sparrows in Western New York once again. They used to breed here, and they barely breed in New York State at all. Occasionally find 1 or 2 pairs, rarely breeding in a grassland area. I would love to see the Henslow sparrows brought back, and they need a very specific kind of habitat that we have all destroyed here in New York and no longer have good breeding grounds for them. Number 8, I would put a fish ladder up Scobie Hill Dam so the steelhead trout and trout can move back and forth out to the lake. Number 9, I would allow for tax breaks for businesses that want to light up their businesses extra and remove old codes and laws that hinder this. And try to become the city of light and embrace the idea of the city of light. We're cold, but we can light up the night sky. And we should try to light up everything we can, from grain silos to Ferris wheels and beyond. We should light up our whole waterfront. The historical buildings look awesome lit up. The grain silos look amazing. And we should encourage businesses to maybe lean into that a little bit. But also keep some environmental concerns, but for downtown, light it up. And number 10, what I would do is I want to create like a tech hub with entrepreneurs, a wellness center, a combo with like jujitsu in the middle and health and wellness products all around it, and have a group ownership. And I want to put this on the east side of Buffalo somewhere and try to recruit into the tech hub from the east and west sides of Buffalo, from downtown Buffalo, from these schools. Anyone who wants to learn about tech, we would be the tech center for all of them to try to not just teach anyone who wants to learn about tech to come there, but also try to connect them with local jobs and businesses, startups, all this kind of stuff. Create a true little tech center that's kind of in between high school and college, where people who are just interested in it can try to do it on the side and see if they want to embrace technology a little bit more and learn about it. And then inside this tech hub would be a wellness center. There'd be jiu-jitsu in the middle with Muay Thai. And on the outside would be products that we approve that are clean products, like clean deodorants, clean soaps, clean foods. Have a grocery store with everything that we approve and try to teach people what it is to eat clean and how to avoid certain chemicals and all this kind of stuff. And then also have anything to do with the wellness space. So cryogenics and chiropractors and massage therapy, all in one area, a giant wellness center. And I think the east side, there's a couple of really awesome buildings there that are historic that have kind of sat open and vacant that we could do something like this there. I think that would be really cool, a tech and wellness center. Even though it sounds like a weird combination, it's what I would do. And maybe if we find enough people to do it, it's something we can do. All these are possible, actually, with the right knowledge and the right resources. So tell us some of the things that you might do. If you could do anything in Buffalo, what are the things you would do? Please leave those in the comments on the videos on social media or on YouTube. All right, this next segment is So You Want to Be an Entrepreneur in Buffalo, Part 4. We're going to look at one of the most memorable lessons I had when I went to school for business. And it was one of the first lessons I ever had. And it was about separating yourself from your competition. How do you separate yourself from your competition? So at my lesson plan, the professor asked a question to the class and said, if there was a business that wanted to open today and ship packages, that was their thing. They were going to ship packages all over the world for people. That would be a difficult thing to do. They would be in direct competition with the United Postal Service and UPS. UPS and the post office are well-established entities that are experts in shipping packages and probably have all their costs figured out. So why would you want to open a company to compete directly against them? Well, a company did, and they succeeded by separating themselves from the competition and specializing in something. They wanted to be different than those two. And what they specialized in was overnight shipping. And that company, of course, is FedEx. That's just one example of how you can compete in a market that seems saturated just by changing something, offering something a little more, a little different, a little extra. Improve the product, improve the service, find a way to give more and let everyone know about it, and you will separate yourself from the competition. This piece of advice I've tried to use almost everywhere in my life. If you're an entrepreneur or business owner in general, and you are thinking of ways to improve your business, there's always a good question to ask. How can you separate yourself from your competition? How can you do this? Like, for example, at the restaurants and breweries, this year we started brewing organic beers made with organic ingredients. And we were the first breweries in Buffalo to do that. We also tried adding tallow to some of our fryers before anyone else did and played with that. Got feedback about that. We were the first place to brew a hop water. So this is like a non-alcoholic citrus seltzer, basically made from hops instead of from chemicals, and just a little bit of natural hop flavor. And it's a non-alcoholic drink that we can. And so we were the first to offer that. So different ways to separate yourself from your competition. These are just a few examples. I think it's always a good question to ask yourself, what makes you different? Why are you different? Why should I go see you? What is different about you than everyone else? And if you're having trouble answering that, try to think of a new way to answer it. Think of ways that are uniquely you. What can you bring to the table? What can your business bring to the table? When you separate yourself from your competition, you create a new category, and that category might only have your business in it. And if you can find that niche, you could take that business and expand it and use leverage and grow a lot faster than if you try to just blend in with everyone else that's doing the same thing. Because there's a sea of people out there trying to sell stuff. So you need to think, why am I different? What makes me different? What is special about my place? If you don't have an answer to that, this is something I would ponder. I would try to find ways to separate myself from my competition. And then on top of that, as mentioned in previous episodes, would make sure that I was doing it within the purpose that I set for the company. So whatever your purpose is, align with that, but separate yourself from your competition. This is a very valuable piece of advice, and probably the single best piece of advice I got from all of college relating to business was try to separate yourself from your competition. All right. Also, as promised now, we're going to take a look at what's called the agent principal problem or the principal agent problem. So the principal in a business is the person that owns the business. So if you own the business, you're the principal. And if I work for you, I'm your agent. So the principal agent problem you try to solve, how do you make an agent or someone that works there care as much about the place as you do? And there's a really good example that was given to me by some of my mentors, and they talk about this. Are your employees, when they're walking in the building, stopping and noticing garbage in the street and picking it up? As an owner, you would. If you're walking in your business and you see garbage out front, you should notice that, and you should absolutely pick it up. But what about just a regular person that's working there? They've only worked there a couple months. When they're walking in, do they care enough to see a piece of garbage on the street and pick it up and throw it out? And if not, how do you solve this problem with the ultimate goal being one of the most difficult problems in business, and that is getting your employees to care about the business as much as the owners? How do you achieve this? How do you solve this problem? And is it solvable? Of course, there's all the traditional ways to try to solve this problem, having bonus structures or incentives, ways to monitor employees and make sure they're doing what they're told or what the system tells them to do, or contracts, things like this. But there are better ways to solve the problem by having the employees be part of the problem-solving process. And the only way to do that is to have a transparent business model. So if you own a business and you're willing to be completely transparent and show the employees the problem and show them the books and show them the numbers, this builds trust with them. And I can almost guarantee you, if you run the system the right way, all of the members, all of the agents will want to help the principal solve the problem if the principal takes care of the agents in a fashion that is equivalent to the problems that they solve. So picture this. There's two different kinds of systems. You go to work for job X. They don't care about you at all. They just tell you to follow the rules, and if you don't, you'll be punished. They monitor you. They have all different kinds of monitoring devices, cameras and codes and all this stuff. You're not allowed to have any creativity into the system. You follow orders. You do as you're told. Are you going to really care? Are you going to be the one picking up the garbage on the way in? Are you going to be the one hoping for success and pushing for the success of the whole business? If you're only told what to do and you don't have no say in how the system is run, are you really going to care? If your voice isn't heard, are you going to care at all? Or would you rather work for a boss that did something like this? They came in and they said, look, I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to show you the numbers that we're taking in, our goals, what we're trying to do as a company. And if we succeed as a whole, everyone else will also succeed. Everyone else will receive bonuses. Will this be bonus driven? So the success of the whole will directly affect the success of the individuals. And once that's established and you make it transparent, you include everyone in the problem solving process and say, guys, what can we do to be better so we all benefit from this system, this business that's running? When you treat a business like this, you can solve the agent principal problem. Maybe not totally. There's still going to be people that don't care or that don't have big enough eyes or don't even notice. They might not notice the garbage. But you're going to get a lot more people caring because they will be invested in the success of the business. Some businesses, it doesn't matter. You can do excellent or poor, and everyone gets treated the same. It's just cookie cutter. Here you go. This is what you get. This is X. This is Y. This is Z. But there are other businesses that include people in the problem-solving process. They listen. They morph, they try to adapt. And the businesses that do that are not only going to help solve the agent principal problem within their business, but they're going to have a better chance of success because groups of people solve problems better than individuals. If you try to solve a problem on your own without listening to the people in the system, if the problem is collective and systemic, you're not going to have enough inputs to solve more problems on average than the group could have as a whole. Sure, maybe the individual gets one or two things better than the group, but if you always include the group is going to be wiser more times than not. The group will know. A business is just a group of people organized that are supposed to help each other solve problems and that have skin in the game. And the same thing is true with the government. Same thing's true with the family. These are just problem-solving groups that are trying to solve problems together, build trust, and have good outcomes. So when we look at problem solving in group, there are a bunch of different ways that we can come to consensus and get our answers. And the one that humans are most familiar with right now is voting. So voting, the group gets a choice. And that choice is usually between 2 answers or 3 answers, maybe. But this is not the best way for groups to solve problems. Groups of people solve problems best when creativity is allowed. So when you allow for each individual person in the system to come up with an answer, and then you play like a game to decide what answer the group likes the best. So when you vote on something, it's usually 1 or 2 different items are given to you to vote. That could come from a boss, or in the case of government, it comes from 2 or 3 corrupt political parties. And they say, choose between these 2 answers. But those answers, those choices are coming from an entity that is not part of the bigger group. When you use collective intelligence, what you do is you include everyone. Everyone gets a say. And then you play a game to shake out what answers you like the best. And we're going to unpack this a lot more in upcoming episodes, but I wanted to touch on it right now. I'm not going to prove any of my points right now, but I'm going to state some facts. Groups of people solve problems better on average than individuals if the systems they use are high trust and they have a way to build trust between each other as individual nodes or people inside of a system. The way we formulate answers from a group is very important. We don't want to give a group a choice. What we want to do is give a group of people a voice and turn the group into like one big magical being. And this might sound a little far-fetched, but I want you to picture this. When you're talking to 1 million people at once, that new being is like a new brain. And that new brain is bigger than the sum of the individual parts put together. And this is testable. This is not just hyperbole or saying something to make you feel good. Like one simple example is if I take any person from a crowd of people and give them an IQ test, on average, they'll get usually about 41% of the questions right. If I take a group of 20 people from a crowd, same crowd, stick them together, and if I have a good system, a good way for them to aggregate answers and be creative and come up with their own answers, the number of correct answers on the IQ test doubles. Sometimes more than doubles. So you get like 80, 81, 82% of the questions right. So that is a crazy increase. We should look at a group of people as much more intelligent than individuals. It's just that the systems that we have to extract that knowledge are either corrupted or not optimized, or worse, we let ego get in the way of group problem solving. Each person wants to have their say and be like, my idea was right. And so it's really important the systems that we use to try to extract wisdom from crowds. And this theory is called the wisdom of crowds or collective intelligence or collective swarm intelligence. And we're going to dive into what this means in the future. But you can start it if you have a business just by talking to your group. Find a way to talk to the group. Hand out questionnaires. Ask your group questionnaires. Ask your employees questions. Say, if you guys had my job, what would you do? And then take all their answers, aggregate them, and let them vote on it or let them choose. Now, I know what most of you are thinking, like, oh, crowds of people can be awful and bad and dangerous, and how do you get people to come to consensus and all this? All those concerns are right. They're just solvable. And they're not taking the approach that you need to take to groups of people and problem solving. There is a way to take groups of people and turn them into what Tim Urban calls in his book, What's Our Problem? He calls them super genies. So groups of problem-solving people that can solve crazy problems and figure out engineering feats and do all kinds of stuff. We need to find ways to maximize this kind of thing, this kind of behavior, this kind of group problem-solving. If you can do this in a business, you solve the agent principal problem, but you also do more than that. You create a different kind of business. And we'll get into this next time on So You Want to Be an Entrepreneur in Buffalo, New York. All right, in our last segment here, we're going to talk about something on request. Someone requested me to talk about this topic on the podcast, so I'm going to. And the topic is gratitude and the power of gratitude. So as you know, I talk a lot about the coach in your head and what the coach in your head should say. And when you're in tough moments, if the coach in your head is saying bad things, your chances of a bad outcome are much higher than if the coach in your head is saying good things, like get back up and focus on the problem. Things like this. Now, there are many great teachers that have taught the power of gratitude as a tool to help define reality. But what most people don't realize is there's a boatload of scientific evidence that shows that gratitude equates to results. Everything from like improved relationships, boosted performance, better sleep, stronger immune systems, lower stress, lower anxiety, increased happiness, increased well-being, and even changes in the brain have been scientifically studied by those who practice gratitude. And when I say practice gratitude, I do think it's a discipline. Being grateful is a discipline. And yes, there are strong spiritual implications when you talk about gratitude. Like, who are you being grateful to? We're not going to push any one thing on this podcast in terms of that. Your gratitude can be to whatever you choose your gratitude to be towards. But don't let anything diminish the fact that there are results that can be seen in your life if you practice gratitude. When life throws really difficult things at you and it's hard to get your mind straight, a good practice is to stop and think of things that you're grateful for. Because it's really, really hard to feel other negative feelings and gratitude at the same time. When things get chaotic in my own life, my first line of defense is trying to switch my mind to gratitude. I have lists in my phone just to remind me of all the things I'm grateful for. And my lists are very long. And if I find new things throughout the day, I put it on the list. Grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. But it's true. I really am grateful for so many things. There's so many things in my life I'm grateful for. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on here. What I do is I make a list and then I email it to myself and I'll play it in my car in the morning with a little background music if I need to get my mind right. You know, this is one thing that a lot of good coaches have talked about, and we talk about it to our athletes too. When you're going to compete under the lights, it can be very stressful. And when I say under the lights, 50 people watching you, 100 people watching you, 5,000 people watching you. You go to compete under the lights, it's different than just your skills. You have the skills of you being a martial artist and a fighter, but also the skills of rising to the moment with extra pressure. And the skills of being under the light, some people can't adapt to that very well, and some people can. And almost everyone feels nervous. It feels intense nervousness right before that. So one really good way, good tip to combat that, if you're ever faced with these high pressure moments, the man in the arena kind of moment, or a moment in your life where you're going through trauma, anything like this, is to use gratitude right there as fast as you can. Stop and go, what am I grateful for right now? You're walking into an intense meeting or a sad situation or a tough situation. Start thinking of things you're grateful for and find a purpose. Go, I'm going to do this for someone else. I'm going to do this for others. And those two things, the gratitude and the purpose, it really changes the outcome. It changes the actual outcome and improves it. So it doesn't matter what you believe in your religion. In terms of overall attitude, if you switch to gratitude and purpose and problem solving, the chances of you succeeding go up no matter what. For example, if I were to compete in jiu-jitsu, I would try to feel gratitude for like the 5 minutes before my match. I would try to sit there and be like, I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful I'm healthy enough to be able to compete. I'm grateful for my competitor. I'm grateful for the fact that someone else cares as much about this art as I do to test themselves in this arena with me. I'm grateful for all the fans here. I'm grateful for the lights. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful for the time I spent on the mats learning this art. I'm grateful for my friends, my family, all the people I've met along the way. And just start rattling off things you're grateful for. And that will create a shield and a purpose that makes the next step a lot easier, which is getting under the lights. Gratitude is not just a thing that you do, it's a discipline. Be disciplined with your gratitude and see if it doesn't make a difference in your life, and use it at the right times. When you feel the pressure of life rising up, fight back with a wall full of gratitude and try to feel that gratitude. Be grateful for the feeling of winning or beating or doing whatever it is that you want to do. If you have a problem that you're trying to solve, be grateful for the opportunity to solve it. Find a way. That's the kind of mindset that can change outcomes. And this isn't just esoteric or someone talking to you on a podcast. There's science behind it. You can look up tons and tons of studies. If you think you can and you think you can't, you're probably right. If bad thoughts are creeping in or stress is creeping in, try gratitude. Just try it and see see how it works for you. See how your outcomes are. Especially if your outcomes right now are not where you want them to be, try gratitude. Be sure to stick around for the final segment of this podcast where we'll do a quote from someone talking about gratitude. All right, as usual, we like to highlight a bunch of stuff that's going around in Buffalo, New York this week and the surrounding areas. First up, we have Simply the Best, which is at Kleinhans. This is a tribute to Tina Turner on Friday, 3/7, and that's at 7:30. Next up, we have the Sport and Travel Expo. This is going to be like hunting, fishing, traveling for all that kind of stuff. There's gear there. That's March 7th through 9th at the Hamburg Fairgrounds, so over the whole weekend. Also on Friday, March 7th, at the Science Museum, you have something called Stones and Bones. It's science after hours with an open bar and adults only. So if you're into science and some cocktails and meeting some smart people, that sounds like fun. Tuesday, March 4th, during the day at 12 noon at the Sportsman's, up on Amherst Street, you have Cheryl Ferris and Joe Baudo. So that should be a good time. A little afternoon matinee music. Tuesday, March 4th is Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday. And there's a couple things going on around town. You might want to check those out individually. It's kind of hard to list them all. There's a Sabres game versus the Sharks at home. They unfortunately dropped their last two games. They had a nice streak going. This could be a very important game for them to keep their hopes alive for the season. So let's hope they pull that off. The UB Bulls versus Miami of Ohio is also on that Tuesday at Alumni Arena, also at 7 o'clock. So a lot of Fat Tuesday options here. At the historic Shays Theater, you have The Wiz. It has to do with The Wizard of Oz. And this starts Tuesday also. And that starts at 7:30 p.m. And then there's a bunch of days it runs for. So if you're interested in checking that out, The Wiz is going on at Shays. Mary Ramsey and Friends is this Thursday, March 6th at the Kaz. That's the new venue in South Buffalo on Seneca Street there. I highly rave about. I love that place. This is pretty interesting. It's the Western New York Refugee Film Festival. Sounds kind of interesting to me. I would kind of like to check that out. And that is by Journey's End Refugee Service. So if you want to go to their website, you can check this out. There's many days for the festival. I'm not exactly sure what it is, if they make films here, or if it's just all refugees who make films, but that's something that I wouldn't mind checking out myself. Burton Cummings of The Guess Who is at Kleinhans. That's also Thursday, March 6th at 7 o'clock. Big Wreck and Thornley are at the Fallsview Casino. That's Friday the 7th at 8 o'clock. And the Buffalo Bandits are playing the Roughnecks at 6:30 p.m., and that is going to be on Saturday as well. That's March 8th. And let's keep in mind here, the Bandits right now are 9-1. The Bandits are elite. If you guys don't realize how good the Bandits are, they're an elite team. And here's a fun fact for you. The Buffalo Bandits are the number one attended lacrosse team in the world. Last year, over 150,000 fans went to the 9 home games, and that marked an 11% increase from the previous season, where we were also ranked first for attendance. Our average attendance for a Bandits lacrosse game is almost 17,000 fans per game. It's the highest on average since 2011. So we've been in first place for a long time. If you haven't been to a Bandits game in a while, I strongly advise checking them out. They're entertaining and we're excellent. We're an excellent team. On Sunday, the 9th, there's Lawrence. It's like a soul pop band. That's going to be at Riverworks at 8 o'clock. They're really good if you haven't checked them out. I checked them out recently. I really dig them. Pretty sure it was a brother and sister combo, and there's like a nice band all around them that does this kind of soul live pop that's really interesting. There's an exhibition called That Which Binds Us, and that's going to be at the Buffalo Albright Knox Art Gallery. That goes on for a little while. It has to do with textiles and fabrics and meanings, and I guess it's pretty interesting. So if you like art, you like abstractions, maybe check that out. And the last major event for the week will also be next weekend, and that is the Buffalo Home Show, and that is at the Convention Center from March 7th through 9th this weekend. It will also be on our list the following weekend. Just a reminder, if you have upcoming events or things to note or news stories or anything you want us to cover, please message the social media platforms of this page or shoot us an email. The last business we're going to highlight this week is Colville Outdoors. So it's an outdoor shop on Route 5, kind of near where the Ford plant is over there. Originally, this shop was down Route 5 a little bit ways, and it was like a surf shop, like a little Ron John surf shop kind of place for fishermen. Last year, they moved it over closer to the Ford plant there in a new location. It's much bigger, and they did a lot to the building. Strongly recommend checking that out. As you drive by, you can look for the big giant fish on the side of the building there. It's kind of their logo. It's called Colville Outdoors. Give that a check out, especially if you're into fishing or the outdoors, or just stop in and check it out. Buy a t-shirt, support a local business that is doing bigger and better things in the fishing world over there. And they specialize a lot in the trout species and float species and things like this, but I think they're multi-species overall, so give them a check out if you're into fishing or the outdoors. Colville Outdoors on Route 5. All right, Buffalo, thank you so much for tuning in this week. The city of good neighbors. Let's go out there and be good neighbors. Remember that a rising tide raises all ships. And if you're on the fence about it, get off and get your kids into jiu-jitsu somewhere. Find a school for them to be in and learn the most valuable lessons they can learn in life. How to problem solve under duress, how to face problems on their own, and how to overcome loss and have a growth mindset. These are all invaluable tools that are available through jiu-jitsu, and there's jiu-jitsu schools, good ones all over Buffalo. Get your kids into jiu-jitsu. As promised, here's a little segment about gratitude that I like to listen to once in a while, especially if I'm in a bad mood or I can't shake it. I can't do it just by reading my own notes. I'll put Denzel's voice on here to start, and this is a really good clip about gratitude that helps me get my mindset when I need it to. All right, everybody, have a great week. Here's Denzel.
Say thank you for grace. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for wisdom. Thank you for parents. Thank you for love. Thank you for kindness. Thank you for humility. Thank you for peace. Thank you for prosperity. Say thank you in advance for what's already yours. It's how I live my life. That's why I am, one of the reasons why I am today. Say thank you in advance for what is already yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for every moment that led to this day. Thank you for the hard times. They made me appreciate the good times. Thank you for the lessons. They were needed for my development. Thank you for my eyes that get to witness the miracles of today and tomorrow. Thank you for everything I take for granted. Thank you for all of my blessings. Thank you for my drive. Thank you for my spirit. Thank you for my strength. Thank you for giving me the courage to fight through the hard times. Thank you for the people in my life, those I love and those I learn from. Thank you for it all. Thank you. Thank you.